Hey guys, how's it going? In today's video, we are going to be discussing a very, very interesting topic, and that is what is the best form of cardio for you to be doing to burn more fat and improve your cardiovascular fitness. So, there's a very simple way of looking at this. I'm going to make this as easy as possible for you to understand. If you want to burn more fat, lose weight, the thing you want to look at doing is doing an activity which is also going to lead to the greatest increase in your cardiovascular fitness. Cardiovascular or aerobic capacity, known as VO2 Max. If you strive to improve that, you'll do things to improve your body's ability to burn fat. Okay? So we want to look at activities that are going to help primarily the VO2 Max, but as a byproduct will help you burn more fat. It's really, really cool how this works out. Now, to understand how this works, there's two kind of fundamental concepts we need to understand. The first thing is that for every liter of oxygen that you consume, you burn about 5 calories. Okay? The second thing is that less efficient movements generate heat in your body. And calories, or burning calories, is really just a representation of heat generated within your muscles. That's pretty much all it is. Okay? Now, with that said, let's look at what are the best forms of cardio. Okay, so I've started off this blog post and on top of this video talking about the elliptical and asking the question, well, is the elliptical the best form of cardio compared to running, biking, rowing, and others? Well, essentially it is. Below this video, I've included a graph, a chart, which shows you that at different weights, right? So if you weigh 135 pounds or 190 pounds, and at the same given intensity, what or how many calories you're going to be burning with cycling, running, rowing, and using the elliptical or cross-country skiing. As you can see, cross-country skiing takes home the gold medal. So why does this happen? And running, I should say, is actually a very, very close second. And in some cases, running can actually be greater in terms of its ability to improve your VO2 max and burn more calories. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So okay, first of all, if we look at cross-country skiing, right? If we look at the athletes with the highest VO2 max in the world, we're looking at cross-country skiers first and foremost. These are athletes that have a VO2 max close to 100 milliliters per kilogram per minute. That's the measure of VO2 max. To give you an example or to give you some perspective, an unfit person, an unfit male of about 30 years old would have a VO2 max of about 25 milliliters per kilogram per minute. I, at my peak, the best shape I was in my life, had a VO2 max of about 70 milliliters per kilogram per minute. Okay, so just to give you some perspective, cross-country skiers, high 90s, me at my peak, 70. Okay, so that's a pretty significant difference. So why is cross-country skiing so effective at improving VO2 max? And if we look at cross-country skiers, they're very lean, right? There's very little body fat on them. So what are they doing? Well, here's the reason. They're using a full body movement. It's very simple, right? Arms are moving, legs are moving. And if you've ever cross-country skied, you'll know how much heat is generated during this activity. I made the mistake of going cross-country skiing when I was in Alberta, Lake Louise, a couple years ago now, and I was wearing snow pants, tights underneath those snow pants, like Nike Dry Fit tights, and I had a windbreaker, a winter jacket, and a sweater on top. Okay, now I cross-country skied across Lake Louise and back, and it took me about an hour. By the end of the hour, when I got back, I was drenched. I was like peeling stuff off. I couldn't get it off quick enough. And the reason for that is because your body generates so much heat when you are using full body movements. And that is the key to improving your VO2 max and your ability to burn fat, right? Full body movements, arms are working, and if the arms are working, then the torso is working, and the legs are working as well. Want to make that more challenging? Go uphill, right? If we look at rowing, rowing is another great example where we see guys, well, I'm going to use guys as an example. If we look at Olympic rowers, like guys are massive, like 6'4", 220 pounds. These are big specimens. So what's the difference with rowing? Again, rowers have very high VO2 maxes. And obviously they're very lean, they're very muscular, they need to be, because it's a very power-based movement, very power-based sport. They're only rowing for maybe 2 minutes if it's a 500 to a 1500 meter race. But again, very, very big muscles to move the boats, right? And again, rowing is a very, very big movement. So they're starting off in a an extended position, or in a I guess tucked position, at the bottom of a squat, if you want to consider it that. As they row back, as they pull back, they're essentially squatting out, right, doing a full squat and doing a back row. So they get the legs involved, the upper body involved. And again, if you've rowed before, you'll know that you're not going to be carrying a conversation with the guy in front of you. It's heavy amounts of huffing and puffing. That's why those two sports have the highest VO2 maxes out of any other athletes. Running is, again, it's right up there as well. If we look at the top runners, marathon runners, very high VO2 maxes, but again, not as much, not to the same extent as cross-country skiers specifically. The biggest difference is that running is a little bit less of a full body movement than cross-country skiing is, right? Because again, the arms are involved, but not to the same extent as they are in cross-country skiing. So with running, why is running such an effective means of burning calories? Why do people use running as an effective means to burn fat, as well as improve their aerobic capacity, other than the fact that they just enjoy running? Well, first of all, we have to go back to our first kind of two concepts. The first one was that for every liter of oxygen we consume, we burn 5 calories. So we look at cross-country skiing, rowing, big, huge movements that get you huffing and puffing big time. That's a lot of oxygen coming in, a lot of calories being burned. That's a great thing. The second thing is that less efficient movements generate more heat. Cross-country skiing is actually a pretty efficient movement, more efficient than running is. The heat that's generated during cross-country skiing is mainly due to the fact that there's a lot of muscle involved in the movement. With running, it's a little bit different. Running is actually the least mechanically efficient human movement. And that's why it is very effective at burning calories. From a biomechanical perspective, I'm not going to get into all the equations and stuff, but I believe, if I can recall back to my biomechanics days, that running itself, from a mechanical efficiency perspective, is about, I want to say, on the low 20s, so anywhere from about 20 to 24%, which means that if you're putting in 100% effort, that 20 to 24% is actually going into the movement. The other 75% is generated as heat, or lost as heat, or essentially calories. So because it's not an efficient movement, your body generates a lot of heat, and that heat is essentially just another way of saying it burns a lot of calories. If we compare running to cycling, cycling is actually the most, I believe it is the most, yes, it is the most efficient human movements form of locomotion that we know of currently. It is a higher efficiency, so it's about 29 to 30%. So again, not too much greater, but a little, a little bit, significantly greater. And because of that, we don't burn as many calories, right? It's, if you think about it, if you look at the chart actually below this video on the blog post, you'll see that, for instance, cycling at 10 to 12 miles per hour burns less than half of the calories that running would burn at that same intensity. Okay, so that's pretty significant. Cross-country skiing, same thing. It's almost more than double what you're going to burn with cycling. And again, because cycling is very lower body exclusive lower body, there's no upper body involvement, and it is a more efficient movement compared to running. So I hope that's made a little bit of sense for you. Okay, so we're looking at big full body movements that get a lot of oxygen coming in, using a lot of muscle, generating a lot of heat. That's going to produce more of a caloric expenditure. That's the ideal type of activity. So when I talk about using full body exercises, like using your weights and your squat presses, deadlifts, all that kind of stuff, the reason for that is exactly what we're talking about here. Full body movements, getting a lot of muscle involved. Now we're talking specifically about cardio today, and we'll kind of have the understanding that interval training is the way to use these activities, which, whether you're using the elliptical or the treadmill or whatever it is you're doing, interval training is the way to go. We don't need to talk about that today. But cross-country skiing, okay? So we look at cross-country skiing as the kind of gold standard of the most effective way to improve your VO2 max. Now, obviously, we don't all have the luxury of cross-country skiing, so what's the next best option? The elliptical. right? The elliptical is the next best option if you cannot cross-country ski, and also if you don't enjoy running. If you don't enjoy running from a just from an impact perspective on your body, if your joints hurt, elliptical is awesome. Why is elliptical awesome? Because again, it has the arms and it has the legs. It mimics the cross-country motion very, very closely. What's even better is if you can find an elliptical machine that has an incline ramp or a resistance ramp where you can increase not only the resistance but the incline as well. And that's very important because once again, if you take an activity and you move it vertically, now you're starting to do more work. That's why walking upstairs is challenging as well. And actually the stair climber is a very, very efficient and a very effective cardiovascular training modality as well. If you have access to a Stairmaster, very, very good because again, you're working against gravity now, not just on an horizontal plane. So if you take cross-country skiing or the elliptical and you're doing that full body movement, and now you're increasing the incline, so you're moving more of your body weight against gravity, you've now added to that resistance. And that is very, very, very powerful. So we've looked at, we've answered the question, is the elliptical the best form of cardio? Yes and no. Okay, the elliptical is, it's kind of a catch-22. It's a double-edged sword. The elliptical is a great, great form of cardio, but it is also the biggest waste of time if you do not use it properly. Okay, running, you really can't go too wrong with it. I mean, it's, you know, you're running. Okay, if you run uphill, you're going to burn more calories. You really can't go that far wrong with running, other than you'll break your body down if you do too much of it, more or less. Okay, but with the elliptical, we're looking at, you know, how do you get the biggest bang for your buck? And unfortunately, a lot of people, I would say, in my experience, just observing people in the gym and working with clients, I would say that about 90% of the people that I've ever seen and worked with, not my personal clients obviously, but before working with them, I would say that about 90% of them are wasting and have wasted their time on the elliptical machine. So what is it that they're doing that's so far wrong? Well, I'm going to save that for tomorrow's video and blog post. So I'm not going to over-inundate you too much information, as I probably already have, but stay tuned for tomorrow's video and blog post where I'm going to reveal the single biggest mistake people are making on the elliptical and how to correct it so that you can burn more calories and improve your aerobic capacity using the elliptical machine, because it is great if you use it properly. So stay tuned for tomorrow's video. Check your email for the notification that it's up, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.